Life is like a burrito. You never know what you're gonna get.
Bro, that's Forrest Gump, where you just take random stuff and pawn it off as your own.
Pretty sure it's not. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Oh, so you think you're tough, eh?
Whatever. So, dude, I'm pretty excited for graduation.
Yeah, me too, man, but I'm gonna miss English 12.
Yeah, we did learn some pretty interesting stuff in English.
Hey, man, do you remember when we learned about leadership at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I remember learning about leadership. We learned about some pretty remarkable people and how these people led meaningful lives despite their dis.
Oh, yeah, okay, bro.
You know, the first quarter did teach me more than just learning about motivational leaders. Throughout the course of the quarter, I was able to refine my understanding of what makes a leader a good one and better understand what it takes to lead my life in the right direction, even when life doesn't quite cooperate the way I want.
You know what? I feel that.
You know, I was reading this book the other day called Domain by Herman Hesse, and the plot of the book basically follows the author in his youth and the events that shaped him into the renowned author that he became. But the part of his story that really stuck with me was how, as a kid, Hess was just lost as to where his place in the world was and where he belonged, whether it was to the educated and scholarly world he was raised in, or in his eyes, the darker, working class underworld of labor and crime his parents go to great lengths to steer him away from. And it wasn't until he met his role model in his teens that he was able to understand that those two worlds were more or less the same, and where he went in life was dependent on how he chose to lead himself down the path we.
Yeah, as you know, we learned about leadership. But what I took away was that leadership isn't something that's given through a job title or such. But rather, to be a leader, I have to obtain specific characteristics. In the article I read, What Great Leaders Do by Joe Garfunkel, he talks about the top 10 leadership skills that requires to make a person form into a great leader. It made me look at people who are so-called leaders and realize they aren't leaders because they have a big title behind their name, but also made me realize the true process and realize the true power a real leader obtains.
You know, that makes total sense to me, man. And honestly, while on the topic of leaders, I just feel as though we should talk about that whole overbearing authority thing.
Alright, yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
I don't know if you've been watching the news or not, man, but have you heard anything about Venezuela recently? About how their government, run by that Maduro guy, it's all sorts of overbearing these days. And I'll tell you what, man, things are getting real bad there. The people haven't been represented in their own government in years, and the nation is starving. And yet, their leader continues to rule with an iron fist, despite his inability to even feed his own people. And I know that things in Venezuela aren't quite as bad as in North Korea, but I just find it ridiculous that these people of this once proud nation allowed their own government to become what it is today without realizing before it was too late.
True, overbearing authority is a problem, bro. We as a nation need to learn from Venezuela mistakes before it happens to us. It had me at focusing on the government actions and trying to get full power and how easy it is to become a mindless zombie in today's society. But in order to not become a mindless zombie, we must first make our own path that's not one made for us. I read an essay by Bentrell Russell, an outline of intellectual rubbish, where he shares knowledge of overbearing authority and how the government's main goal is to power, and how people just get content with whatever and they rely on authority to tell them what to do. In this line in the essay that goes, as soon as we abandon our own reason and we are content to rely upon authority, there is no end to our troubles. This article opened up my third eye, my dude, for the better.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know, man, one of the biggest things I took away from this year in English actually originated from our third quarter on success. Before that quarter, I'd find myself stressing out about life and what I wanted to do with it. But some of the things we watched and read really just showed me that worrying about the future will do nothing for me other than cause stress. Earlier this year, when I was researching for my third quarter essay, I stumbled across this article from Forbes that basically said not to worry about the future because my opportunity would come eventually, but rather just be ready for it when it does present itself. I feel like that is honestly really just good advice towards keeping a positive mindset, having the right outlook on it.
Oh yeah, when I first started this class, I viewed success as most people call the American dream. Money, big houses, fast cars, etc. However, after reading Tuesdays with Maury and watching videos, then I started rethinking my own plans for my future. And I questioned myself, was I really chasing my dream or chasing a dream that was just something everyone wanted? I was reading about Jim Carrey the other day, a lifelong dedicated comedian and actor that stated, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed so they can see that it's not the answer. It made me realize that success doesn't always involve making lots of money. Success is what brings happiness.
That's a pretty far out concept, man.
Yeah, what about fourth quarter?
Yeah, fourth quarter, that was about like courage and stuff, right?
Courage is a big part of my life, my dude. Something everyone has but doesn't use. We use many examples in class. Courage is a big part of achieving success. Courage takes strong mental fortitude. I read about a guy named Jacqueline Lucas who joined the Marines in World War II at the age 14. He was patrolling the ravines with his platoon in the Japanese attack, throwing 2 grenades at the patrol. With this courageous act, he jumped on one and pulled the other one under him, and fortunately didn't kill him. However, he went under 26 surgeries and retained 250 pieces of shrapnel in his body. By doing this act, he was given a Medal of Honor by President Truman.
You know, in quarter 4, we learned a lot about courage, and in class, we heard about some pretty decent examples of it. But you know what, man? I was reading this article the other day about a man by the name of Sir Ernest Shackleton, an explorer who had dreams of discovering the South Pole, but was beaten to that distinction by another explorer. So instead, he wanted to be the first man to sail across Antarctica by boat, which is possible during the Antarctic summer, but unfortunately for Shackleton, he and his crew ran out of summer in the middle of Antarctica, where their ship became permanently frozen in polar ice. Him and his crew waited out the winter, unlike their ship, which sank shortly after freezing. And to make things worse for this guy, he also ended up floating nearly 1,000 miles off course. Once the summer came again, Shackleton and his crew managed to guide 3 lifeboats to a small uninhabited island on the bottom of the world. From there, Shackleton took a life raft with 4 other crew members and paddled for a month straight to a whaling station 800 miles from where they had been stranded, where he was able to arrange a rescue party and rescued the rest of his crew without suffering a single fatality. Shackleton's journey required an absurd amount of courage at every turn, and to complete it without single fatality makes his story one to admire, despite the fact that he didn't actually sail across Antarctica. Just like many things in life, Shackleton and his crew would never have lived without the courage to fight for survival throughout their journey.
So, boss, what's your general takeaway from English 12?
You know, the biggest thing that I learned from English 12 is to just think for yourself more than anything else. You know, just like, don't pay attention to what everyone wants you to do, and just be yourself and do what you want to do, what will make you happy in life. And just pay attention to what goes on around you, because everything has consequences.
You know, my takeaway from English 12 is to be my own person, don't join the herd, but rather make my own path and own decisions.